Welcome back. This is Business Watch brought to you by Nedbank. In the studio, we have Nedbank's Treasury dealer, Sandiswa Dlamini, to help us decode the latest market trends and risks. Good afternoon, Sandisa, and welcome to the program. Now, we can expect the U.S. to make announcements on interest rates, with President Trump calling for cuts. Same goes for South African Reserve Bank. There's expectation for at least a 25% basis point cut. In the midst of economic uncertainty, what does this mean for price pressures and inflation?
Thank you, Natsile, and good afternoon to your viewers at home. So, as you have rightfully said, there's a lot happening around interest rates this week, and there's a lot of announcement that will be made. So tonight we are expecting the U.S. to make their announcement. There's a lot of pressure that have been experienced by the Fed chair, Powell, from the president of the U.S., where he's being persuaded to cut interest rates, even though the current stance is that interest rates should be kept constant. So after the meeting tonight, I guess we'll be able to find out if Powell does cower to those pressures or remain rigid to the steady interest maintenance. And in South Africa, we are also expecting an interest rate announcement tomorrow from the SAP. But in this case, it is driven mostly by inflation. So South Africa have just released their inflation numbers, where we did notice that the inflation have been very stubborn, below 3%. So the economy in South Africa, they target inflation to be between 3% and 6%. But unfortunately, in the past few months, we have seen inflation go as low as 2.7%. And in May, it went up to 2.8%. And in the most recent inflation number was 3%. So that signals that the SAP might cut interest rates in the following cycle, which is tomorrow. Right. And this will also lead us to our own monetary policy, where we are also expected to cut inflation, but that will also be driven by our own data in terms of our inflation numbers. So if the numbers in terms of inflation suggest that we have low inflation, the Central Bank of Swaziland might continue to cut interest rate as following the South African decision. So these developments have led to a bit of cautiousness in the market in this morning in terms of trading. That's why we haven't seen a lot of volatility in the currencies. Looking at the ZAR USD, ZAR Euro, and the ZAR GBP, the range is not that wide compared to yesterday. So this news coming in, it shows a bit of cautiousness on traders, but we are still waiting to react to the announcements.
Right, let's get to equities. This morning, U.S. market specifically was an all-red sea, with Nasdaq at least 21,098 and S&P 500 at least 6,370. What are the numbers saying right now? How are we looking?
So in terms of equities, it's been a bit positive. The S&P just dropped slightly, but that drop is not really much significant, considering that the S&P was reaching its highest levels in the past few days. So this drop is sort of a pullback. Mostly it's coming from the fact that a lot of companies, a lot of investors have been withdrawing profits. They've made a lot of profits in the past few days. So now they are withdrawing that money from the index. In terms of the FTSE and the JSE All-Share, a lot of that upside in these indices, the increase, it comes from the mining sector, especially in South Africa. So in recent days, we have seen the prices of gold rise to the highest levels ever since. But these have led to the index gaining from that, because also platinum have also gained a lot of ground. So this increase in prices have led to the JSE All-Share also gaining some ground. But in the past few days, we've seen it break up to 100,000, 102. So currently the range we expect in the market to see for the JSE is between 97,500 and 102,000. And the FTSE, on the other hand, is also gained some ground, because there were announcements, earnings announcement from AstraZeneca. There were also announcements from Apple, Alphabet, and Tesla. So these were positive news for the FTSE index, which gained a lot of ground, because because of those announcements and a lot of those earnings. On the financial sector, we have seen HSBC, the bank, which recorded high profits, but they were not as high as we expected them to be. But they continued to give out dividends to their shareholders, which was a very big positive. And Barclays also did very well.
All right. Let's get into commodities. We had this morning, world was green, looking good. We had the dollar trading, gold rather, trading at 3,329 US dollars. And then we had the Brent crude oil trading at least $72.57 per barrel. How are we looking now?
Thank you for that question. Unfortunately, the volatility in terms of crude have been very high because of the tensions in the Middle East. But with the recent announcements of deals made between Israel and Hamas, or Israel and the other countries like Lebanon, that have calmed the markets down a bit, but it's still trading cautiously because at any day we know that we can get announcement of something going array in that aspect. But the prices of gold have also dropped slightly, but this drop has not been a big significant. As you can see, it's 0.01. This is because as interest rates are expected to drop, so investors are now expected to move away from interest-bearing instruments like fixed income to move and invest in gold. So the prices of gold actually might start to increase again, especially if the US cut interest rates or keep them steady. And from the South African market, the sentiment is that interest rates are definitely going to be cut, but I think we will be able to see much of a response from the gold price after the announcements. So at the moment, we know that gold will increase if there is a dovish positioning of the central banks. And another thing is that if we see again tensions arising from the Middle East, gold always stand as a safe haven. When there's a lot of uncertainty in the markets, people tend to like to hold gold instead of any other market instrument. So the price of gold will be steady for now, but after the announcement, we expect to see reactions. And crude, there's also an aspect of crude whereby we expect numbers from the US to be announced in terms of their inventories, where they have reserves for oil that, if needed, they can increase the supply or decrease the supply of oil in the market, which then affect the price. So if the prices, they seem to be high, the US can be able to increase the supply and make those prices cool off or increase them if necessary. But unfortunately, in this market, we expect the pressure to be for the prices to go down. Okay,
let's get into currencies. How is the rand or lilangeni looking against some of the world's strongest currencies, such as the pound or the euro or the dollar?
Thank you for that question. Unfortunately, or fortunately again, we're still trading very cautiously in terms of currencies. We are at 17.85. Late yesterday, we reached levels of 17.99. So we almost broke into the 18th level. And the euro is at 20.6219, and the GBP is at 23.8631. So in this aspect, the trading limits, we're expecting the range to be between 18 and 17.75. And this is at the back of being cautious of the announcement. We expect to see a reaction in terms of currencies after the announcements. But currently, what the market is pricing in is the interest rate cut in SA, and interest rates are expected to remain the same in the US. But another aspect of this is that tomorrow we are expecting the tariffs to start, especially in the South African economy, whereby we have seen a 30% tariff being posed by the US government. But fortunately for the economy in South Africa, the 30% tariff only affects 8% of their exports. So as much as this is a very big tariff for the country, they are still cushioned by a lot of other exports that are not affected by the US tariff. But what we are currently looking at is that the negotiators from the South African perspective to negotiate down that tariff, of which in the current state there hasn't been much movement. So the market sentiment is that they haven't gained anything from the negotiations, or there haven't been any traction from the US side. So that is what's sort of making the current movements in the rand. But we expect much more from tomorrow after the announcement, and we definitely benefit from that since our currency is linked to the rand.
All right, Sandiswa, thank you very much for your time. And that was Sandiswa Lamini come through with a market analysis from Nedbank. We'll be on the lookout for some of these numbers. Otherwise, that's all. That brings us to the end of our show for today. Until the next edition, thank you so much. Stay tuned.